morning, everyone. Welcome to Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Georgia. Happy Monday, Senator. Today we have former DOJ pardon attorney, our friend Liz Oyer, back for the third time on Grounded. And then tomorrow we have former RNC chairman and co-host of The Weeknight on MS Now, Michael Steele. Remember last time he was supposed to come on and there was a little scheduling snafu and we got stood up. But this time he's back. We have it solidly set.
Yeah, we get to ask questions of and hear the commentary of the Man of Steel.
Man of Steel. That could be a good episode title.
And he might start his own show and just call it that now that I brought the name.
Man of Steel. Yeah. Well, hopefully you get some royalties. Okay, so should we go over some headlines before Liz joins us?
I think you should.
All right. Here's the deal.
Did anything happen? That's what I want to know. Anything that happened?
Some things happened. Yeah, some things happened. Okay, so the vice president just wrapped up a round of initial talks this morning to finalize a deal with Iran to end the war. He says that they made progress on 4 key points, including establishing a mechanism for keeping the Strait of Hormuz open, coordinating for a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. They haven't been doing very well at stopping fighting there. An agreement on IAEA inspection, and then a process for technical negotiations that remain. So the workings of a deal. Meanwhile, the president of the United States is lashing out again at the New York Times for this headline that reads, "What changed after almost 4 months of war?" Analysts say, not much. Well, the president does not like that. And he says, really? Their military's done, their navy's gone, their air force is gone, and their inflation is at 250%. Their economy is broken, and the Hormuz Strait is open. Well, I don't know if he realizes this, but the Strait of Hormuz was open before this, Senator. And by his own account, he said last week that we will run out of oil reserves in 4 weeks if the Strait of Hormuz isn't open. So he's contradicting himself. And then I want to play for you what he said in an interview with Axios over the weekend. And then we'll talk about this on the other side.
You learned about not just the exercise of power, but the limits on your power as a result of the conflict.
There are no limits.
No.
I haven't learned that lesson yet. I know there are, but there are no limits. We defeated them totally militarily.
So no limits. Go ahead. I know you have a lot of thoughts.
Well, I've got a lot of things to say. First of all, I don't think the president's running the country anymore. I think it's the group of clowns that he put around him that are doing it. I think that the JCPOA looks pretty good right now because the JCPOA had China, Russia, and the rest of the world watching Iran and had inspectors on the ground. Now the president's talking about giving all sorts of money, open it up so they can get money out of their oil. The Strait of Hormuz, which his genius people around him obviously told him was no big deal, has been closed, and now it's a big deal that they're reopening it, which it is a big deal they're reopening, but if we never went in there, it would have never been closed. I just don't think the president knows what he's doing right now because I don't think he's capable mentally of knowing what he's doing. I assume he's probably going to sue the New York Times because that's what he's done his entire life. When he disagrees with somebody, is go to the courts and sue them, whether it's to pay his bills and sue them so he doesn't have to, or whether it's an article that's gone bad. I just think that you can say the military is done. They continue to be able to close the Strait of Hormuz whenever they want. They continue to shoot down a helicopter here a week or so ago. So I'm not sure that their military is done. And I can tell you that oil gushing out of the Strait of Hormuz, that is not a man who's in touch with reality because price has dropped. Gasoline's dropped, I don't know, probably 20, 25 cents. It went from 4.5 down to about $4 here. But the truth is that's a hell of a lot higher than 275, which is what it was before the war started. So, what to say, the people that are watching this, whether you're a supporter of the president or not, you've got to ask yourself, is this the president who ran on not getting into conflicts? Is this the president who's talked about lowering costs? Is this the president who's not lived up to any of his campaign promises? And to be honest with you, it isn't. And it's because I don't think he's mentally capable of running the country anymore. And so I think it's the people around him. So you got JD Vance, who's doing the negotiations, poor bastard, because whatever he comes up with, it's going to be as good as the JPCOA. It's not, because number one, you're not going to have China and Russia on board, and number two, they're going to give them a hell of a lot more money than what was in the JCPOA. So that document that the president ripped up, the agreement with Iran that the Obama administration negotiated and had bipartisan support, the president ripped up his first few days in office for his first term. This is what we get. This is what we get. We get the Middle East and Iran being more powerful than they've ever been before. And by the way, when this president term is done, Iran ain't going to be done. They're still going to be raising hell with the world, the United States included. So, you can talk about everything he's done, but like I said before, you continue to piss on your shoes until you it's raining, and this is a prime example of it.
One of our viewers in the chat says we're in serious need of good news. We do have some good news that we are going to talk about a little bit later. I do have to pull up though. I mean, you talk about mental
But
fitness.
I just want to say this. You're right. We are in serious need of good news, but the truth is that we're kidding ourselves if we think this country is going down the right path. And if you
Well,
think this country a better place for our kids and our grandkids, you're drinking something more than coffee with Bailey's in it. I'll just tell you that.
did you have some coffee with Bailey's this morning?
I got
Oh,
with Bailey's. I've got coffee with Bailey's right now.
right now in his last word with Lawrence O'Donnell mug.
Right.
You talk about mental fitness. I wasn't going to show this, but I just will because it's odd. The president put a post out on Truth Social on Father's Day saying, "Great daughter, my honor, President DJT and this mystery woman." No daughter that I've ever seen. I don't know who that is. So there's that. Meanwhile, there's some Italian beef we should talk about, and I'm not talking about a sandwich in Chicago. I am talking about President Donald Trump lashing out at Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. He says that she begged him for a photo with her at the G7 summit last week. And then he went after her for what he called a lack of cooperation from Italy with his war in Iran. Meloni says this is all false. Then Italy's foreign minister canceled a planned trip to the United States, but the president just couldn't quit here. He continued to post about her, begging for a picture with him and calling her unpopular. And then Maloney called these unprovoked attacks senseless. And she said, quote, "In any case, my popularity is none of your concern. I suggest you focus on yours."
Yeah, you want to know my comment? Go back to
Yeah.
my first. Go back to my first comment. Is this what you expect out of your president of the United States? Is this the kind of behavior that is sane?
It's
Look, he's
well, and it's an ally. Italy's an ally.
having a absolutely. It doesn't matter. He has no allies. He has no friends. Take a look at John Cornyn. He has no friends. You can be a friend with him. It does not matter. And it's the same thing with countries. And I think it's been that way since he's grown up. I happen to have a minor in psychology, so I'm very well in tune with her psychological mind. But the truth is that this guy's got an inferiority complex like none other. Like none other. And it shows in what he does. And now he's getting older and he's starting to lose his fastball big time. You talk about Sleepy Joe. I mean, Jesus, this guy falls asleep at the drop of a hat and he says stuff that does not make any sense. And this is the president of the United States. Man, I'll tell you, if Congress doesn't wake the hell up and start doing some things, because this dude is not on top dead center. He's got some issues. I'm just telling you, huge issues, and they get worse. And we've got over 2 more years of this administration and a president who is, uh, he's in tough shape, truthfully.
Well, I was thinking about this when, our talk about Congress doing something when I read this story this morning, because we're going to stay across the pond. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer resigned as British PM. And, throughout the years, as we've covered, especially since Brexit 10 years ago, they do things differently there. So here's how it works. The leader of the parties are selected, and those parties can replace their leaders at any time, even if that person is the prime minister. So suddenly the party loses confidence, or enough members lose confidence, well, they're gone, and the prime minister can also resign. So that means that a prime minister can be replaced without any big general election. The party in control stays in charge. But this means that the UK will get its sixth prime minister in 7 years. And I was just thinking, like, what if we did it like that? What if suddenly the Republicans in Congress said, we don't have confidence in this guy. He's going after the Italian prime minister for a photo op.
Sounds appealing, doesn't it? But I like our system. I do like our system better if Congress would read the Constitution and understand that their Article 1 in the Constitution, they have a job to do. They have the ability, by the way, to replace the president. It's called impeachment. That's been tried twice on this guy and unsuccessful both times. I'm not advocating for impeachment, but that is a tool that they can do to replace a leader if they so decide to do it. But honestly, um, I get it. But six prime ministers in 7 years is not the kind of consistency you need to build an economy. Uh, on the other side of the coin is what the president's doing right now is not the kind of actions that need to have happen to build a world class economy. And China, I'm telling you that they got to be the happiest country in the world. When Trump took over, we had the greatest economy in the world. I bet we're not even close now. I bet we're not even close. I don't know that. I haven't read anything. I haven't seen any statistics. But the truth is we are, with the immigration policy we have right now, with energy prices being so high, with our debt being where it is, um, people better start waking up in Washington D.C. And it's not about cutting. It's not about cutting food security. It's not about cutting, food stamps or any of those kind of things. It's about making sure we have a tax code that's fair and equitable to everybody. And right now, the oligarchs are running the show, and that is a fact. And that's not good news. And I'm sorry, but take a look at what's going on. The big beautiful bill did nothing but increase the wage gap in this country. And God bless people like Tom Tillis who had balls enough as a Republican to vote against it.
Why? So you say you don't advocate for impeachment. Tell me more about that.
Well, I mean,
What do you think should happen?
unless you got the votes, don't move forward with it.
Mm.
All the two impeachments did before was empower him and make him think that he's irreplaceable, when in fact everybody's replaceable in this world, including him, especially him.
All right,
The
we
other
have one more quick.
one more thing really before we go, and that is Vance is doing this negotiations. It is, JD Vance is JD Vance. He says what he says. He does what he does. He's empowered Trump a lot, but he is absolutely in a no-win situation. Absolutely, unequivocally. There's no way he can come out of this, and that's why you see Marco Rubio, by the way, not doing anything because he understands this is a shit sandwich, and he wants his big.
Yeah. Well, we will see what happens there. I think, yeah, you're right about that. I think there's some new reporting about some comments behind closed doors the president has said about who might take the Oval Office next, and he made a comment about Cubans. So we will talk about that. I know Liz Oyer is in our waiting room, but I do want to also mention this morning news that economist and former head of the Fed, Alan Greenspan, died at the age of 100. He served as the chair of the Fed under four different presidents. He steered U.S. monetary policy for decades. And his wife, NBC chief Washington correspondent Andrea Mitchell, says he died from complications of Parkinson's. So sending our love to his loved ones. All right. Should we bring Liz Oyer on?
I would just tell you, bring Liz on, but for anybody that's had an association with Parkinson's, you understand this is a horrible disease. It's not a disease that in any way, shape, or form is generous. It is very, very developed. And my good friend Johnny Isaacson had it, and I watched Johnny, who was a hell of a guy, by the way. Watched him deteriorate over the years that he had it. It's very unforgiving illness, that's for sure.
Yes, and he lived to 100, which is just incredible, incredible. So let's bring on Liz Oyer, our friend to the show, former DOJ pardon attorney. Hey, good morning, Liz.
Good morning.
Thanks for
Les,
being with us.
my first question is that, we're approaching 2 years into this. This is the 3rd time you're on the show, and every time you're on, you look younger. What's going on?
I can't share my secrets. I'm so sorry.
Really?
Oh, come on, Liz. That's why people tune into this show for
I guess
beauty
okay, all
secrets.
right, fine. I finally learned how to use the filters on this app.
Oh,
Yes.
you're
I'm just
telling me
kidding.
that
I'm just
this is all fake photography going on here?
no.
No, no, I don't think there's a filter on this platform. There are some on other
There's
platforms, though.
there's
Yeah,
needs to be
there's actually
filters,
not a
I'm telling
filter
you.
on this platform, or if there is, I haven't learned how to use it yet. And when I do, I'll look 25.
Yes. Okay. Well, Liz, thanks for being with us again. We always have so much to talk to you about, but today I want to talk a lot about Todd Blanche, if we could. So, Senator, do you have any first questions before I jump right into that pool?
If you're gonna talk about Todd Blanche, I'm getting off this podcast. The lady come on. The lady said she wanted some good news. How the hell are you gonna get any good news out of Todd Blanche? That's my question. Huh?
Well, part of the good news is Liz and the work she's doing. Go ahead, Liz.
Then I'll stay on. Go ahead.
Well, the good news is that we have an opportunity to stop this guy, or at least to try. And by the way, I have really mixed feelings about talking about Todd Blanche because, on the one hand, I think this is a really important subject, but on the other hand, is a really terrible, depressing subject. And so I hate talking about it, but I spend a lot of time talking about it anyway.
Yeah, yeah, one of those things that becomes something that you like consumes your life, whether you want it to or not. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit here. You put out a video last week, and you said that Todd Blanche, the acting AG right now, just took us one step closer to a constitutional crisis, and it all has to do with that $1.776 billion slush fund for J6ers. So I'm wondering, for people who did not see that video, Liz, could you just walk us through kind of why you think that is the next step close toward a constitutional crisis?
Yeah. So what actually happened is a microcosm of something bigger that's happening. What happened is in this litigation about the slush fund, Trump's $1.8 billion slush fund, a judge essentially told Todd Blanche, "You can send me a signed declaration saying you are no longer pursuing this slush fund, and I will dismiss the case, or litigation challenging the legality of the slush fund is going to go forward." And she gave Blanche the opportunity to essentially resolve this by simply putting in writing something that he has told Congress, he's said publicly, which is that the slush fund is dead, they're no longer pursuing it. And instead of just complying, which probably would have taken 5 minutes to sign a statement saying we're no longer pursuing this, he had his minions, one of his minions at the Justice Department, file a pleading with the court that says essentially, you can't make us. You can't make me tell you anything. You can't make me put it in writing. And the position of the Justice Department to this federal judge, who by the way has been on the bench for over 30 years, a very experienced senior judge, is this is not necessary. We're telling you it's not necessary for us to put it in writing. You need to just take our word for it that we're not pursuing this slush fund, which is a pretty shocking standoff now that Blanche is in with the courts. And it really embodies this larger problem, which is that this Justice Department believes that is their job to decide what the law is, when in fact the Constitution says that is the job of the courts. The executive branch, the Justice Department, they enforce the law, but their law enforcement is subject to limits imposed by courts. Courts have constitutional authority to step in and say, no, 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 you can't do that. You have to be accountable to what the law and the Constitution actually says. And Blanche does not want that type of accountability. He doesn't want any limits on his power as Attorney General. So he essentially told this federal judge, You can't make me. And now we're in this standoff, which brings us closer to a situation where one branch of government is saying we no longer respect the Constitution and we're not going to abide by the limits of our authority.
Okay, that's a big enough problem, but can I go back just for a second? So what the judge is saying is you can't use the 1.776 billion, I would rather call it because I think it's pretty catty, but the 1.776 billion to pay off the J6ers. That's what the judge is basically saying. And Todd Blanche is saying, I'm not gonna follow your order or whatever it was, edict, I don't know, what did the judge put down?
Yeah, the judge put a temporary pause on this fund, saying you can't move forward with this. And the Justice Department is saying, well, we're not moving forward with it, so dismiss this lawsuit and let's get this resolved.
So if he says he's not gonna do it, why doesn't he just sign the document and say, "I'm
Exactly.
not gonna do it"?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you cut right to the chase there. If he says he's not going to do it, why won't he put it in writing?
Right, because is there, uh
Yeah, what does that tell you?
yeah, what is that? As a lawyer, what does that tell you?
I mean, I don't think you have to be a lawyer to know that that tells you that he's lying. He is not, the slush fund is not dead. He's not done with it. He wants to reserve the right to resurrect it at any moment. And that's why he won't put this in writing that it's over.
So can I ask you a question that I don't know? I really don't know the answer to this. What was the $1.76 billion to be used for if it wasn't be used to pay off the people who tried to overturn the election?
So that was taxpayer money that's in the treasury essentially. It is he basically dipped into the bank account that holds our tax dollars and said, "I'm taking $2 billion, almost $2 billion, and I'm going to set up a secret commission that can pay this money to whoever they want."
So it was in other words, it was passed for the purpose of paying off the J6ers.
Well, the money was not actually appropriated for that
Right.
purpose. That's what this slush fund was created to do. It was created to dip into tax dollars that are used to fund the operations of our government and redirect that money from essentially our pockets to their pockets. Your money is going to be sent to some guy who was climbing the fence at the Capitol and breaking in the windows and sitting with his chair up on a senator's desk.
So the and I don't mean to belabor this because if I was more in tune with what was going on with this, I would know. But if they can't use it for paying off the J6ers for climbing over the fence and sitting in somebody's desk or peeing in their desk drawer, what would it be
Or
used
worse.
Well, it would be used for the ordinary operations of government, and that
for?
could be a variety
So
of
it was
different.
it was taken out of the Justice Department's general fund, which is taxpayer dollars, by the way,
Yeah,
to be
yeah, yeah,
set
yeah.
aside. Okay.
Yeah, the general fund, the specific fund that it was taken from is a fund that allows the Justice Department to settle litigation, to settle lawsuits that are filed against the United States. And settlements are generally only made when there is a claim filed that has some legal merit. So, for example, if you are hit by a postal truck that's delivering mail, you can sue the federal government and you can try to be compensated for your injuries. And, if the mail carrier was looking at their cell phone while driving and hits you and injures you, the Justice Department's probably going to settle that lawsuit and you're going to be compensated for your injuries. So that's what that fund is supposed to be used for. There are not, $2 billion that's lying around in that fund is supposed to cover a whole lot of claims over a lengthy period of time and claims that actually have some legal merit. The claim that was supposedly settled here was Donald Trump's $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS, which was a total sham from the get go. Essentially, Trump was suing himself, claiming $10 billion in damages for an injury that he didn't really suffer at all. The claim had no legal merit for a number of reasons, including that it was barred by the statute of limitations, which essentially is a limit on how long you have to file that type of claim in court. And that case was for sure going to be thrown out by a judge without a dime coming from taxpayer dollars to pay any type of settlement. But Blanche decided that he wanted to get in under the wire before the judge had the opportunity to dismiss the case and reach this settlement with Donald Trump. So essentially, Trump paying Trump out of our money.
The
That's
American
just
American taxpayers paying Trump as Trump sues Trump,
Yep.
paid
Yep.
by the
Yeah.
American
Yeah,
taxpayer.
and in this case, the thing that's interesting about this is this money, he's saying it's not going to Trump personally. It's going to people who've been injured by weaponization of government. But there is a part of this settlement that is actually very financially beneficial to Trump, which is a separate document that Blanche personally signed that said that the Justice Department will not audit or investigate Donald Trump in the future. And it applies not only to Trump personally, but also to all of his businesses and to all of his family members. So that right there is worth hundreds of millions or potentially even
Mhm.
billions of dollars to Donald Trump, just being out from under any type of government investigation or audit in perpetuity for all of time. And that part of the settlement agreement is really intact at this moment. Blanche is saying that the slush fund is dead, but he's not saying that that part of the agreement is dead. And I believe that that's the only part of this agreement that, frankly, Donald Trump personally really cares about at all. He did this slush fund to signal to his base, like, look, I'm trying to help you guys out here. I'm trying to get you guys some money. But at the end of the day, if they don't get any money and the only person who walks away from this with some financial benefit is Donald Trump is going to be perfectly happy with that outcome.
Yeah, it's really incredible, and it's something, I don't have to tell either of you, but we have all of these headlines just coming at us all the time, and gosh, I mean, like, you almost forget, like, "Oh, yeah, the IRS thing, that's right. Where does that stand?" And it goes through so many legal hoops that we have to follow the bouncing ball, but you have to follow the bouncing ball on so many of these stories. It's so easy to get lost on this. But, like, in the spirit of checks and balances, Liz, let's say that Todd Blanche just continues to say, "No, no, you can't make me." Where do we go from here? Like, who will hold him accountable?
Well, we, the citizens, ultimately are the last line of defense, and we need to hold him accountable by taking back the power that we gave him. I think we forget sometimes that our elected and appointed government officials only have power because we gave it to them. It may be easier to give it than it is to take it back, but I think what we need to be thinking about now is how do we take it back? And in the case of Todd Blanche, we have an opportunity to take that power back by doing everything that we can to make sure that our elected senators do not confirm him to become our next attorney general. He is someone who does not respect the Constitution, does not respect the rule of law, and is not faithful or loyal to the American people. He is loyal only to Donald Trump. That is exactly the wrong type of person to have as attorney general. That's exactly the reason why Donald Trump wants him as attorney general. And ultimately, the Senate has a constitutional role to play here. They get the opportunity to vote on whether to confirm him as the next attorney general. And we should be kicking and screaming about the prospect of them voting to make Todd Blanche our next attorney general, given the record that he has built to date as deputy attorney general and now acting attorney general.
Yeah, so he's gonna face confirmation hearings next month in the Senate, and you kind of laid out a roadmap, for this. So for our viewers who have not seen that or read that, you said that you're gonna do whatever you can do to stop him from becoming permanent AG. So can you kinda go over the roadmap and what that looks like, what we should be doing?
Well, I think that we need to try to get our senators to do the right thing here, and there are two hurdles that Blanche needs to clear. One is that he needs to persuade the Senate Judiciary Committee to vote to advance his nomination to a full Senate vote, and that process requires a vote of the 22 members of the Judiciary Committee. 12 are Republicans, 10 are Democrats. That Blanche needs a majority, which means that if any one Republican on that committee votes against Blanche, his nomination is sunk. He's done. So that seems like the first opportunity. That is the first opportunity to defeat his nomination. If he is voted out of committee, the next thing that happens is his vote will be the full Senate will vote whether to confirm him or not. And four Republicans would need to vote against his nomination to defeat it. Fetterman, the unpredictable Democrat, has said that he is going to vote against Blanche's confirmation. So that means 4 Republicans would need to vote against to defeat his confirmation. I've laid out in a pretty detailed post on my Substack who appear at the moment to be the most potentially persuadable Republican senators who we can target with calls and emails and letters and outreach. And I've laid out some of what I think are the most egregious crimes of Todd Blanche that should move the needle with some of these people. Will they at the end of the day? I do not know, but I feel that it is my duty, at least as a lawyer and a citizen, to try my best.
Who can you tell us who the potential swing votes are on this in the Senate?
Well, yeah.
Both on the Judiciary Committee and on the floor. I mean, I assume Tillis is one of the Judiciary Committee. Is Cornyn on the Judiciary Committee?
Yes, Cornyn is on the Judiciary Committee, and this may be a case of Trump reaping what he sowed by essentially kicking Cornyn out of the Senate. He is now untethered, unshackled. He has the ability to be a little bit more independent because he's no longer beholden to Donald Trump. So, and Tillis also is on his way out of the Senate. Those are the 2 senators, the 2 Republican senators who are no longer going to be in the Senate next year, and those are viewed as the most likely to consider voting against Blanche's nomination.
Yeah,
Blanche has been up on Capitol Hill meeting with these people and doing everything in his power to, make promises and kiss rings and, try to persuade them to come around. Tillis did say last week that he had a good meeting with Blanche. But, my hope is that some of these senators will think longer term about the future of this country and not be deceived by promises that Blanche may be making. He deceived the Senate during his confirmation hearing for the position of Deputy Attorney General, and there's no reason to believe that he is any more sincere in his promises now. Tom Tillis asked him directly, "Can you promise me that there will not be even a whiff of a political prosecution coming out of the Justice Department if you are confirmed as Deputy Attorney General?" And Blanche said, "I commit to that." That's a quote. He said, "I commit to that." To Tom Tillis under oath at his confirmation hearing for Deputy Attorney General. That, of course, was a total falsehood because we've seen nothing but political prosecutions coming out of the Justice Department since Blanche was installed as Deputy Attorney General. So I hope that these people are smart enough not to be deceived again by these false promises that Todd Blanche is making.
Who are the ones in the Senate?
Well,
The full Senate.
yeah, there's a couple others who are on their way out, including Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, who also got the Donald Trump special treatment. He was defeated in a primary challenge, and he has become somewhat more independent since that happened, and he's viewed as a potentially persuadable vote. Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins are 2 that have been discussed as potentially open-minded about Blanche, and there are a number of other senators that really have said nothing publicly about the matter. So, we need to get to 4 to defeat him, and it seems like there are some candidates that are clearly not decided, and there may be others that just haven't spoken to the issue who are persuadable.
Well,
I mean,
one of the points I would make to the people on both the Judiciary Committee and the whole body of the Senate is that there's a lot of really good attorneys out there that are Republicans that are probably MAGA that are a hell of a lot more qualified and more honest than this cat.
Yes.
And why not try to get somebody at least moderately truthful and competent?
that's not the test, though, Senator. The litmus test isn't that. It's fealty. It's who will do the president's bidding, and Todd Blanche has proven himself to fit the bill.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's no competent, credible lawyer who is going to do what Trump wants, because what Trump wants is illegal. He wants somebody who's going to put Donald Trump's personal interests above their legal and constitutional duties, and you're just not going to find a legitimate lawyer who's willing to do that. That's why Donald Trump burned through so many attorneys general during his first administration. It's why he was so frustrated with Bill Barr, because he recused himself from the Russia investigation, which was what he was legally obligated to do, ethically obligated to do. But Trump just wanted him to get in there and get his enemies at all costs. And that relationship did not work out. So what Donald Trump needs now is a lawyer who's not thinking about the post-Trump future, not thinking about the possibility of losing their law license or being investigated themselves for violating the law in service of Donald Trump.
So, Liz, let me ask you, is your heart out at the top of the hour? I forgot to ask you that before we started.
No, I've got a few minutes.
Oh, okay. So, I want to ask one more thing here about Todd Blanche, and then we do want to move on to a couple other issues. But, I mean, you wrote kind of about some of the things that he's already been part of, right? And that he has approved and even personally facilitated what you call some of the worst abuses of the justice system in history, including that IRS lawsuit, the Epstein files fiasco, the prison transfer of Ghislaine Maxwell, the vindictive prosecution of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, illegal purges of career DOJ lawyers, and politically motivated investigations. So that's all like a little primer, a mini primer into what he's done both as deputy and acting. What happens? What do you predict will happens if he does get through the Senate and he does get the permanent job?
I mean, I guess there could be a scenario where he gets this job and then he suddenly, has all the power that he could possibly want and decides that he's not going to be beholden to Trump's every whim. But I really don't see that as a realistic likelihood. He wants to get the job, and then he wants to keep the job, and he wants the power. And to keep the power under Donald Trump, you have to do what Donald Trump wants. You cannot push back, or you get ousted. And I think that what we're going to see if Blanche is confirmed is a totally lawless Justice Department. We're going to see a Justice Department that works against the Constitution, works against the rule of law, and works for one person only, and that's Donald Trump.
What kind of stuff would they be capable of doing in your mind in a lawless, anti-constitutional way?
Well, let me tell you about one thing that I learned recently, kind of by accident, that makes me very afraid. Uh, the situation with Ghislaine Maxwell's prison transfer is something that I've been looking at closely because this was obviously special treatment given to her as part of some sort of quid pro quo in exchange for her saying nice things about Donald Trump and exonerating him from criminal conduct in connection with Jeffrey Epstein. And Blanche, who was then the deputy attorney general, obviously orchestrated this thing. So I was looking closely at the BOP policies that I'm somewhat familiar with from my years spent representing people serving federal sentences as a federal public defender. And I noticed that in May, just about 6 weeks ago, the director of the Bureau of Prisons, who was appointed by Donald Trump and who reports directly to Todd Blanche, enacted a change to BOP policy that says that the attorney general has the power to essentially override all of BOP's policies related to the placement of federal prisoners in different facilities and to choose the facility where they will serve their sentence. That may not sound as shocking to, if you don't understand how the system works, but this is an incredibly complex process designating federal inmates for service of a sentence. There's like a 120-page BOP manual that prescribes pretty rigidly where you go based on a variety of factors, including your criminal history, how dangerous you are, things like that. And they just enacted this policy that says essentially the attorney general can just scrapped the whole policy and direct the director of the Bureau of Prisons to place a specific inmate wherever he chooses. That was enacted about 6 weeks ago. So that would cover Ghislaine Maxwell. Blanche could say, director, send her here, send her there. It would also cover potentially anybody else who's serving a federal sentence. So if you're an enemy of Donald Trump and you're serving a sentence for a low level, white collar, nonviolent crime, he could send you to a supermax prison. If you're somebody who is dangerous, but you are you're a contributor to
Uh,
Donald Trump's
yeah.
political cause, he could say, all right, you're going to a minimum security camp. I mean, it's just outrageous. And it actually is totally inconsistent with a law of Congress that says that the BOP must make this decision based on certain criteria, including things like public safety. So
We
that's the
have
type
Gene in the
of Blanche do and is doing.
And
We have
so
Gina in a comment. It's asking if that can be challenged, Liz. Can that be challenged?
Yes. So I'm not sure who would have the standing to challenge it. It's something I haven't had the opportunity to think through fully yet, but there is a law of Congress that prescribes certain factors that the Bureau of Prisons needs to take into consideration in designating federal detainees for service of a sentence. And I certainly think that this policy is inconsistent with that law passed by Congress.
in other words, you're saying is once again, Congress needs to step up and do their job. Is that what I kind of
Yes.
heard you?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But, there's just so much mischief he could do, and that's just one example, and,
Sure.
maybe it's just about Ghislaine Maxwell, but maybe there are other people who are benefiting from or being harmed by that particular policy and others that Blanche can, force upon us because of his incredibly powerful position as the chief law enforcement officer in our country.
Yeah.
Especially when we learn that the DOJ is now investigating California Governor Gavin Newsom and his wife. I mean, do you see that case going the way of other investigations that have fallen apart, Liz, or do you think they'll just find anything to cling to, like they did with Comey and the seashell indictment?
I don't know enough about the facts and the evidence to know where this could go, but what I can say is that the process that is being followed is outrageously improper because there have historically been extra safeguards in place to ensure that political officials, elected officials aren't prosecuted for political reasons. Those were all centralized in an office called the Public Integrity Section of the Justice Department. Main Justice had a specialized team of lawyers and investigators that essentially had to vet cases involving political officials and elected officials to make sure that they weren't being pursued for the wrong reasons. That entire team was dismantled. Most of them were fired or forced out by Emil Bove in the early days of this administration, and now Todd Blanche. And there is basically nothing left of that team, which is made up of non-political career appointees. They essentially ripped out all the guardrails to make sure that prosecutions cannot be initiated for improper political reasons. So
Mm.
that they can do things exactly like this, so that they could make it easier to investigate people like Gavin Newsom and his family. And the point of it isn't necessarily even to get a conviction. The point of it is to put them through a hellacious process that is a punishment unto itself. Being subject to a federal criminal investigation is incredibly punitive. And, if you're guilty, that's one thing. If you've actually done something and it's an investigation that's well placed, maybe that punishment is deserved. But if you're somebody who's just being investigated because the president doesn't like you, that's just a terrible injustice to invade somebody's personal life, to put them through the financial pressure as well as the emotional stress of a criminal investigation. It's incredibly time consuming as well. That's just a terrible misuse of the Justice Department. This administration wanted to have no guardrails in place so they could do that purely for sport in cases of people that they don't like. This is something that Blanche has not hesitated to do time and time again, despite his promise to Tom Tillis back, a year and a half ago when he was being confirmed for Deputy Attorney General that there would not be a whiff of a political prosecution in the Trump DOJ.
Here's the thing that's amazing. You came from the Department of Justice. You worked there for how many years? How many years you worked there?
I was there for 3 years.
For 3 years. We're a year and a half, almost to the day of this administration, and this is just one agency.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
just one agency that shows how they have total disregard for the Constitution and wanna do whatever the hell they want. By the way, the same way that everything else has come down the pipe, whether it's invading Venezuela or Iran or no, regardless what it is, whether it's the president making a trillion and a half in the goddamn Oval Office. The real question here is that, and we've said this for a year and a half now, is when is Congress gonna actually read that document that so many of them say is the greatest document that's ever been written, and they never read what's in it, and they aren't following it if they did read it. When is Congress actually gonna step up and be a check? We've seen the administration, we've seen some of the court cases be what I would say is a check on the administration and others that just kinda turn a blind eye to them. But the bottom line is Congress hadn't done jack shit on any of this stuff. I'm hearing some people talk about the deal with Iran is no good, but for the most part, unless unless they're 100% with Trump, they'd vote him out of office, see John Cornyn, and they aren't doing anything to hold this president in accountability.
Yep.
And that's unlike any other president in my lifetime, whether it's Biden, whether it's Obama, whether it's Bush, whether it's Clinton, all those folks were held to account. Whether we agree with it or not, they were held to account by Congress. And
Yeah.
now there's none of that. There's none of it.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that they were held to account for seems almost quaint in comparison to what's happening now. It's just like
Yeah.
different orders of magnitude worse what's happening now, and yet there's no accountability, which makes it so much more shocking. In my realm of pardons, I used to be the pardon attorney, so that's kind of my area of expertise. I remember, people were still talking up until recently about Bill Clinton's pardon of Mark Rich, who was a donor who got a pardon like 25 years ago, and it was a scandal at the time. There were congressional investigations that followed because people were so upset about it. And, it is still held up as an example of an abuse of the pardon power like 20 plus years later. Now that seems absolutely quaint in light of what Donald Trump has done to corrupt the pardon power. Yet we have not seen a single congressional investigation or even a question asked about Trump's use of the pardons. He has essentially wiped out over $1.5 billion worth of debts that are owed to taxpayers and to victims of crime by using the pardon power. People in his orbit are making millions and tens of millions of dollars on the pardon economy. He has gotten paid. He's gotten, millions of dollars in contributions for pardons. And it's just incredibly corrupt. And yet it is going completely unchecked by Congress. It seems like that should be something where there's bipartisan agreement that we don't want the pardon power to be used as a tool for personal financial gain by the president and people in his inner circle. We don't want pardons to be handed out to people who don't deserve them. But, there's been nothing from Congress on that.
Well, one thing that gives us hope is the work that people like you are doing. Yeah, that's right. The people like you are doing, Liz, because you're such a great follow for this reason because you spell this stuff out for us. You help us understand it. You help us understand why it's important, and you lay out a roadmap. And so I'm going to link to the Substack post that you published last week about what folks can do to stay engaged, to get involved, to do whatever we can in this moment in history to say, okay, like we took a stand. And I just thank you so much for all the work you're doing to help us stay educated about this.
Yeah, thanks for having me on for a great discussion as always.
This isn't my question, but I've got to ask you this. This is Marisa Giorgio. You may have heard of her question, but Kirshner was on our show here a while back, and he said, if this administration was to play, he would want to go back to DOJ and try to get the DOJ back to what the DOJ should be. I think it's a great question, so I got to ask it, Marisa.
Go ahead.
Would you go back?
Yes, I would go back, but I think, where I'm a little bit different from some ex-DOJ folks is I'm not nostalgic for the institution as it once was. I was a federal public defender for 10 years before I joined the Justice Department, and I had a lot of notes before I walked in the door. It has always been a very maximalist organization. There are things that I believe should be done differently, and it's always been an institution with flaws. Where it is now is just an absolute tragedy, and I want to be part of the rebuilding, but I don't want to rebuild it back exactly the same as it was. I want to build it back better and stronger and to better serve the needs of the American people.
Pete Buttigieg said the same thing in an interview we had with him about a month ago. Said exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, great minds, right?
I-
Great minds think alike. All right. Well, Liz Oyer, former DOJ pardon attorney and just all around warrior. Thank you so much for joining us again. All right. We'll talk. We'll talk soon. Thanks,
good to see
Liz.
Bye.
I did want to ask her about those algae pond, but I think like in light of everything else she's talking about, and we were running out of time, but I do need to show you this. So, I mean, we talk about J6, right? And not only so many of them being completely pardoned, but now the slush fund. Meanwhile, I'm sure you heard this, Senator. We talked about it last week. That makeover of the reflecting pool is not going so great. It's a great week though if you're green algae. If you're green algae, you're having a banner week. Like there have never been so many headlines about green algae, but it came back. No surprise to scientists here. Workers poured the hydrogen peroxide in. Well, guess what? That blue paint is starting to peel up, float to the top of the reflecting pool. And a former Olympian, a former Olympic cyclist, David Hearn, was riding by and he stopped to just touch it to feel the liner. And moments later, I'm gonna put a picture of this up. Moments later, he was arrested. He was arrested, and Donald Trump is saying that all this is happening because of a result of vandals, and they're gonna be fully prosecuted, and they're gonna spend years in prison. I mean, like, that's what he's worried about.
Well, he should be worried about it. He gave a no-bid contract to an outfit to paint the pool. Now, this takes me back to when I was about 6 years old, and an outfit came here, and they were painting barns. And the folks said, "No, we'll paint our own barn." And they painted a barn about 7, 8 miles down the road, and then it rained and the ground was red. That's what happens when you have people do something that don't know what the hell they're doing. The paint is peeling off that floor, I would bet, not because of the hydrogen peroxide, because it was prepared improperly so the paint would adhere to it. That's what happens when you give a contract to your buddies and do a no bid contract. The president has one person to blame for this fiasco that is actually pretty much an embarrassment. And by the way, kind of foreshadowing for the United States, in my opinion. You've got a
Oh.
reflecting pool that is covered with algae that just got repainted for how much was it? $38 million on a no bid contract. And now the paint's peeling off and floating to the top. No, the president needs to look in the mirror and take full responsibility for this. And he should pay out of his own account, not the taxpayers, to fix it. I don't care if it's getting some tilapia and put in there so they'll eat the algae and then fix it. But the truth is that this is a mess, and it's a mess of the president's own making.
I kinda love that idea. Like, wouldn't that be a funny headline? Like, they're dumping farm-raised tilapia into the reflecting pool.
They tell me they eat algae. I don't know. I mean, that's what they tell me.
Who's they?
I was talking to somebody. I'm
Uh,
not throwing anybody under the bus. You're a
okay.
German and you want the facts. I'm not. I'm a farmer. I'd rather
Uh,
go do the thing.
okay, I do wanna do one last headline tonight or tonight, it's morning. One last headline this morning.
The long day
Um,
yesterday. Yes, I got you. Go ahead.
ah, okay, so we said we're gonna have some good news. This is one of those stories. We have to celebrate the wins, folks. And you'll remember that I went to Social Circle, Georgia to do reporting on the warehouse that the federal government purchased for 128.5 or $6 million with the goal of making it an ICE detention facility. The city manager there really fought back hard. I interviewed him. The town fought back. There were protests. And it seems that it worked because there is this new headline that says that DHS is going to scrap its plans to turn that Georgia warehouse into a detention mega center. The city posted on Facebook saying that the property could be sold if no other federal agencies express interest. They hope it will return to the local tax base. But yes, they are no longer going to try to put an ICE detention facility in that small city of about 5,000 people, just east of Atlanta.
I think it's really good news, and I think it speaks to the good reporting by you. Okay, I think that's
Oh,
important.
not just
Yes, yes, and to the city manager. Um, I don't want to bring the doom and gloom into the conversation, but I hope somebody pays attention. Do you remember what that originally sold for? We paid 128.5 million for. It was like 5 times more, 10 times more than.
it was almost 5 times. It sold in 2023 for, I think, like 29,000,000.
Yeah. So, and this was bought by the Department of Homeland Security, which shouldn't be buying anything, by the way. It should be going through the proper steps, but they didn't. They bought it. Thank you, Christy Nome, along with the 2 airplanes with beds in them. You bought that too. But the truth is that 128 million, I would almost be willing to wager that it'll probably bring less than what it was sold for in 2023 because of the increase in costs. That's what I would say. And that's another $100 million added to our national debt by this president who's supposed to be in the party that's conservatives, that is spending money like nobody's ever seen before as president of the United States. Whether it's the war in Iran, whether it's putting 38 or $28 million into a goddamn reflecting pool of paint, or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Tearing down the East Wing, building a golden uh, ballroom for his buddies. I mean, I just got to tell you, Congress needs to step up, because if they don't, they've already lost a tremendous amount of credibility, and these people know better. And I know listeners going, no, they don't. They don't know better. They do something about it. But the truth is, they do know better, and they continue to close their eyes, and the American people continue to suffer because of the policies that come out of this administration. So good for Social Circle Georgia. Good for the reporting that you did. And
Not just me though, everybody. There were a lot of reporters working on this.
you were the one that almost went to jail. I mean, so that's what it, but the truth is, and probably should have in retrospect, But the truth is that I say that in jest in case anybody's listening. Um, but the bottom line is that this administration continues to fritter away money. By the way, and this shouldn't be a surprise, the president has done this entire life. Remember, he's the guy that had a casino that went bankrupt. How does that happen? How does that happen when it's stacked towards the house? How does that happen?
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
that's a bad casino. Well, I mean, good for people who go there, I guess, unless you just not win and
You
you
know,
just spend.
I could see it if you were in the middle of someplace that had no people in it. But really, this is crazy. It's not.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, good social circle, and I think you talk about hope in these times, and stories like that do provide hope because it shows that pushback works,
Yeah.
defiance works, and not everything is when I met with people in that town, they felt totally helpless. They had no idea how they were gonna get around this, and here we are. So, good on them, and we will continue to follow that story with these other warehouses too, because it seems DHS is pulling back its plans for a lot of those warehouses. So, we have Michael Steele with us tomorrow, former RNC chair, and I have a lot of questions for him. You are wearing a hat that says whitefish on it.
Well, not just whitefish, but back in May, I ran a 26-mile marathon in whitefish
You did not.
and they gave me this hat. And, I mean, I tell you, this body might not look like a marathoner's body, but it got out there and at 26 miles zipped right back, right by, did a series of 4-minute miles in that. And I got this hat. So, well, truth be known is this is a marathon that's done in May, second largest marathon in the state of Montana, down in Whitefish, Montana, on the Whitefish Trail, I believe it's called. It goes through our public lands that were saved by a bunch of people in Whitefish, including a good friend of mine. And and that's just the way it is. So if you're a marathoner, or I think they do a 5K run too, or something like that. I don't know what 5K is. That seems like long distance too. But if you're a marathoner in May of next year, you Google it up and get out there and breathe some good air and run up and down the sides of the mountains and big fun. But that's
It is so beautiful. Yeah, we wanna thank our friend Dan.
in fact,
He's done a
one Marisa Giorgio used to live in Whitefish, Montana. I'm
I
just saying.
did. It's a beautiful place. But I do need to say that, first of all, 5K is, I think, 3.2 miles. And second, the biggest marathon in the state is happening in Missoula this weekend, and the Missoula Marathon is consistently voted as one of the top marathons in the country by, I think it was Runner's World Magazine. So if you are a runner, a marathoner, you got to come out. It's just beautiful. It's so beautiful. I love to go watch the marathon.
Right now, you got to get on an airplane for you to get to Missoula.
Well, no, this people who run, no, you don't plan it the week of. You plan this for the next year. So if you're thinking of a marathon,
It's only 26 miles. I mean, that's just a hop. I mean,
I did want to ask you one more question from the comments. We have a friend from Australia watching, and he's put a lot of really thoughtful comments in. Yes, he started watching us because of our episode with Justin, Wolfers, Fed Lasso. And so he wants to know about America, and based on what his friends have told him, the most important task for the next president or the next president is reform for the Supreme Court, particularly a code of ethics and term limits. I heard Senator Cory Booker talking about this weekend which was, I think he was on Meet the Press. What do you think about that, Senator?
100% correct. Booker's spot on. In fact, I sent a text to Booker and said, "You're spot on. It's the right thing to do. Put a code of ethics, put term limits on them. I think it's absolutely the right thing to do, or put age limits on them. I don't care. One or the other." And I'm not a big fan of term limits, but this court has totally abused their power, in my opinion, and quite frankly, have taken money from people that they should never ever be taking money from. Shouldn't be taking money from anybody, by the way, if you're on the court. Period. And so there needs to be a code of ethics. The first part of your question I thought was interesting, though. What the United States needs to do to begin with, because the list is long. We got to make things affordable again for people. You got to make sure the tax code is fair, so that everybody's paying their fair share. You need to make sure the Social Security is out there for the long haul. We need to reestablish our relationships with our allies that this president has shit on continually, and the list goes on and on and on. The next president of the United States, assuming we have a free and fair election, and we have one, is going to be a really hard job, because this person has been AWOL from the things that are important in this country and has created far more problems for the United States of America than he has solved.
All right. Thank you to everybody. We love this community. We want to thank our guest, Liz Oyer. We always love having her on. We want to thank Pearl Jam for letting us use their music. And we want to thank all of you for tuning in. We will see you back here tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning, right? What time?
Tomorrow morning. 10 a.m. Eastern.
All right. Perfect. Tally ho.
Are you going to tally ho? There you go. Bye-bye.